All right, so today we're talking about the sacrament of reconciliation, or otherwise known as confession. The sacrament in the church has a lot of questions around it, and not everybody really knows how they feel about the sacrament of reconciliation. So hopefully we can clear some of the fog that's hardening our hearts to see the beauty of this awesome sacrament. So it comes right out of the scriptures. Jesus says to Peter, actually Simon, he says, "Simon, you are now Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of the netherworld shall never prevail against it." And he says to Peter, "I give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven." That's where he makes Peter the first pope. And he says, "Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Jesus also says to the apostles in the Gospel of John that they will receive the Holy Spirit after he's been glorified, after the resurrection. Jesus will send the Holy Spirit, and the Spirit will give the apostles the power to forgive sins. Jesus says, "Whatever sins you forgive will be forgiven. Whatever sins you retain are retained." And so these are two very important instances where Jesus tells the apostles, the 12 men that he called to be his immediate followers, the 12 men that he made the first priests of the church, that he told to also take bread and wine and to turn it into his body and blood in remembrance of him. These same 12 men, he gave this holy power, again, not a power to be lorded over people, not a power of hierarchy, but it's a power of forgiving sins, something that only God was able to do. But now God is giving that power to his lowly, broken, and weak servants. So this is where the sacrament of reconciliation comes from. Practically, how it works then is priests sit in a confessional of sorts. Some priests sit just in a chair on the side of a church, but you come up to the priest, make the sign of the cross, and whether you've been going to confession once a week or you haven't been to confession in 40 years, it's really very simple. You just simply say, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been however long since my last confession, and these are my sins." The trick with confession is to be specific and name and claim these things that are holding us back from being the best version of ourselves that we can be. And so it's really hard to look another person in the face and say, "Look, I'm not perfect. I lie, I cheat, I steal, I do things to myself and I do things to others that go against love. People I say every day, 'I love you,' I then turn around and I do all these other things that some could say are proof that I don't love you." And it's really hard. It's really hard to look at ourselves sincerely and say, I don't have it all together. I'm not perfect. And as hard as that is, it's beautiful and it's awesome and it's holy and it's so sincere to be able to sit down and say out loud the specific things that we need to work on. And so the specificity isn't for the priest to get some dirt on you, right? I mean, that's not what this is about. It's really about humbling ourselves and having the courage to say, "I'm not perfect." And that's okay because I'm working on it. The lie is to say and believe that I'm perfect, I got it all figured out, I don't need any work at all, I'm 100% there and I know what I'm doing and I'm just going to keep on going and doing what I'm doing because I'm doing it the right way. Well, that's a bunch of baloney. That's not true. Nobody is like that. And it's in the sacrament of reconciliation where we're able to show that to ourselves and most importantly to show that to God. A priest in the seminary explained confession in this way where the penitent, the person coming to confession, they feel like they're at their worst. But as the priest, we see them at their best because they've humbled themselves and they have the courage to come and say, "I need help. And the help I need is God's grace. And so in that moment, priest hears what you have to say. If we feel the Spirit's given us any kind of advice or words of wisdom, we may or may not share that with you. It depends on the situation. And then we offer you a penance. And penance, for better or worse, has been viewed as a punishment. It's not a punishment. Rather, penance is just another step in showing God how sorry we are and how much we want to grow to be like God, who is love. I always tell second graders as they're preparing to receive the sacrament of reconciliation for the first time that penance is the equivalent of going back to your parents after you've apologized for writing all over the wall. You've already said that you're sorry, but penance is coming back with a bouquet of flowers and saying, I know I already told you I'm sorry, but this is to show just how sorry I am. So when the priest gives you penance, it's not a punishment. It's not, oh, I have to stand my knees for 5 Hail Marys, which is what, the equivalent of 45 seconds? But rather, it's us helping you to come out of that confession with a prayer bouquet to offer to the Lord, to say, Lord, I'm sorry, and I want to keep growing in relationship with you, and so help me. And then that's when the priest, after he tells you your penance, puts his hands up and he gives you the prayer of absolution, absolving you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so, friends, if you haven't been to confession in a day or in 50 years, run. Don't walk to the beautiful sacrament. And in terms of being weird about telling the priest, we're not allowed to say anything. We actually can lose our ability to act as priests if we tell anybody the sins that we hear in confession. Even if you tell us that you murdered somebody and we get brought into court, we can't say anything. We can't even tell them that you came to confession with us. And so we take the seal of the sacrament, that's what we call the seal of the sacrament of confession. We take that very, very seriously because we could lose our whole vocation by sharing even one little detail. So friends, please run, don't walk to that beautiful grace-filled sacrament. Receive the grace of the Holy Spirit. Humble yourself and see how free you will feel as you leave fully refreshed and renewed.